The twin moons of Vorath hung low over the jagged cliffs, casting silver light across the forests. Kara crouched on a high ridge, eyes sharp, muscles tense. Today was different. Today she faced the ultimate test. Deep in the valley, a creature moved. Larger than any she had seen before, the true apex predator of Vorath. Its scales gleamed like dark metal, its tail was a spiked whip, and its eyes glowed red, scanning the forest with unmatched awareness. Kara had studied it for days, noting its habits, its hunting grounds, and even its weaknesses. She knew a direct attack would be suicide. Instead, she would use strategy, patience, and intelligence, her greatest weapons. She moved silently, using the shadows and the rocks to hide her presence. The predator sniffed the air, sensing movement, but Kara's camouflage kept her unseen. Her plan was to lead it into a canyon where its size and strength would work against it. Every step she took was calculated, precise. One mistake could mean death. Hours passed as Kara maneuvered the creature through the forest. She used small traps, noises, and clever distractions to guide it. She was patient, letting the predator make the first move. Its roars shook the trees, but Kara remained calm. She had faced dangers before. She knew fear would only weaken her. Finally, the apex predator charged toward her trap, a pit disguised by foliage and leaves. Its massive weight caused the ground to give way, and it fell, crashing heavily at the bottom. It roared in frustration, thrashing its tail and claws. Kara did not rush. She waited, observing its reactions, noting how it moved when cornered. She had learned that this was a creature of instinct, predictable in its fury. Kara descended carefully into the canyon, her eyes never leaving the predator. It lunged at her with its spiked tail, and she rolled aside, narrowly avoiding a strike that would have crushed her. She was fast, agile, and always thinking 2 steps ahead. Every move the predator made, she anticipated. Every roar, every swipe, she countered with precision. Hours of careful maneuvering passed. Kara used rocks, branches, and the narrow canyon walls to limit the predator's movement. She forced it to tire itself, letting her traps and environment weaken it without unnecessary harm. She admired the creature's strength, acknowledging its power, but she knew that intelligence often surpassed raw force. At one point, the predator cornered her near a cliff edge. Its red eyes glowed with fury. Kara did not panic. She studied it quickly and noticed the pattern of its lunges, always slightly predictable. Using her last remaining tool, a set of ropes and hooks, she created a tension trap. When the predator lunged, it triggered the mechanism, causing it to stumble and slide down the cliff slightly. Kara seized the opening, striking with precise blows that pushed it back further without killing it. The battle continued through the night. Kara moved like a shadow, striking only when necessary, forcing the apex predator to make mistakes. Each trap, each maneuver, each observation she made brought her closer to victory. She felt alive, every sense heightened, every instinct sharp. Finally, just before dawn, the apex predator lay subdued, exhausted, and panting. It was not dead. Kara did not kill it. She had no need to. Victory was not in destruction, but in mastery. She had outsmarted the most powerful creature on Vorath, using strategy, patience, and intelligence. She had proven herself without unnecessary cruelty. Kara approached the apex predator cautiously. She studied its eyes, the rise and fall of its chest and the twitch of its tail. The creature recognized her strength. In that moment, an unspoken respect passed between hunter and hunted. Kara had not just survived Vorath. She had dominated it. As the sun began to rise, casting orange and gold light across the canyon, Kara stood atop a rock, looking down at the valley. The forests were quiet now, the predators wary of her presence. She had become a force unmatched, a human who had conquered a world built for death. Her thoughts drifted to the council who had exiled her. They had believed she would die, that the planet would claim her as it had claimed others. They had been wrong. Very wrong. Kara had not only survived, but she had thrived, learned and mastered every danger Vorath had to offer. Kara climbed to the highest cliff overlooking her territory, feeling the wind on her face. She thought of the smaller predators she had hunted, the apex predators she had challenged, and the countless strategies she had used to survive. Every creature on Vorath had learned to respect her. She was no longer a human alone on a death world. She was the ghost of Vorath, a name whispered in fear and awe across the forests. Her eyes scanned the horizon. She had proven mastery, but she knew there was always more to learn. Vorath was a harsh, unforgiving world, but it had shaped her into something extraordinary. She had turned exile into dominance, fear into respect, and danger into opportunity. Kara smiled. The apex predator lay below, alive but humbled. The smaller predators avoided her paths. The forests had learned her presence. And somewhere across the galaxy, the Council would hear of her success, realizing that humans, especially Deathworlders, were not to be underestimated. She had survived the impossible, mastered the deadly, and proved that strength alone was not the measure of power. Intelligence, patience, skill, and courage were equally, if not more, important. And Kara had them all in abundance. As the first light of morning touched the cliffs, Kara looked down at the valley one last time. She was not just a survivor. She was a hunter, a master, and a symbol. The ghost of Vorath had risen, and the galaxy would never forget her name. The forest of Vorath was quiet, almost reverent. Predators moved carefully, keeping their distance, aware that the ghost of Vorath watched from the shadows. Kara stood on a cliff overlooking the valley, her figure strong and confident. Weeks on this deadly planet had changed her completely. She was no longer the girl exiled to die, she was a master of a world built for death. Kara reflected on her journey. She had faced countless predators, from small, cunning hunters to enormous apex creatures. Each encounter had tested her, forcing her to think, to adapt, and to grow. She had learned to survive, to hunt strategically, and to command respect through intelligence and skill. Vorath had been her crucible, and she had emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. She looked down at the valley where the apex predator she had subdued now prowled cautiously. Even the mightiest creature had learned to respect her. Kara did not feel anger or malice toward the beasts. She felt understanding and acknowledgement. Predators were not mindless killers. They were intelligent, cautious, and worthy opponents. By mastering them, Kara had proven not just her strength but her patience, cunning, and discipline. From the cliffs, Kara surveyed the territory she had claimed. Small predators avoided her traps. Pack leaders hesitated near her paths, and apex predators thought twice before approaching her hunting grounds. Vorath itself seemed to recognize her presence, as if the planet had accepted her as its dominant force. She had turned exile into mastery. Kara thought of the council that had sent her here. They had believed she would die quickly, that Vorath would claim her as it had claimed others. They had underestimated humans, and more importantly, they had underestimated her. Kara allowed herself a quiet smile. The galaxy had seen Deathworlders as weak, fragile, and disposable. She had proven that perception entirely wrong. Her mind drifted to the small victories along the way. Her first trap that caught a medium predator, the careful maneuvers that subdued a massive beast, the night spent observing the apex predator until she understood its every move. Each step had been deliberate, every lesson learned, every action calculated. She had turned survival into sport, danger into mastery, and fear into respect. Kara descended from the cliffs and moved through the forest silently. Her presence alone caused creatures to avoid her, clearing her path. She paused near a river, watching a pack of predators drink cautiously. Even without confrontation, they acknowledged her as the dominant force. Kara realized she had become part of the ecosystem, not a simple predator, but a master of it. The Council's mistake had become obvious. They had sent a Deathworlder girl to die, expecting an easy victory of a planet claiming its victim. But Kara had done the impossible. She had not only survived, she had thrown the planet itself. Every strategy, every calculation, every step had been her own. She had used intelligence to triumph over strength, patience to outlast ferocity, and cunning to outmaneuver instincts. Kara considered the future. Vorath had tested her, shaped her, and revealed her potential, but she was not content to remain isolated. One day the galaxy would hear of her victories. Humans had always been underestimated, judged weak by alien standards. She would show them that humans were not only survivors but thinkers, strategists, and warriors. Deathworlders especially were forces of nature that could adapt, endure, and dominate in ways others could not imagine. As the sun rose over the jagged horizon, Kara climbed to the highest ridge. She looked out at the forests below, alive with movement yet subdued by her presence. The apex predators were still the strongest. Kara had never felt truly welcome anywhere. Born on a death world, a planet where every creature could kill in an instant, she had learned to survive since she could walk. Her childhood was filled with lessons in hunting, tracking, and patience. Her parents had trained her to move like the wind, to think like a predator, and to respect the deadly balance of life. But none of that prepared her for what the galaxy's council had planned. The council called her a mistake, a dangerous human from a dangerous world. They decided to exile her to Vorath, a planet that no one returned from. It was full of apex, predators, creatures so fierce that even trained soldiers and hunters avoided the world. They thought sending Kara there would end her life quickly. They were wrong. The dropship's doors opened with a hiss, and Kara looked out at the planet. Below, mountains twisted like broken bones, rivers of black liquid cut through valleys, and thick forests stretched as far as her eyes could see. She felt a chill, not from fear, but from excitement. This was her kind of world. This was where she belonged. Kara stepped out, her boots crunching on the jagged rocks. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of sharp vegetation and the faint, pungent scent of predators. She tightened her survival pack on her back and scanned the horizon. She did not panic. She never panicked. Almost immediately, the dangers of Vorath made themselves known. From the shadowed trees, a massive predator with scales like iron and claws like sickles lunged toward her. Kara reacted before it even landed, rolling to the side and using a small climbing spike to propel herself up a tree. The creature's roar echoed through the forest, shaking the ground. She watched it from above, studying its movements. Most people would have frozen, but Kara analyzed. She noticed the predator favored ambush over speed. It was strong, but not very clever. She dropped silently from the tree and moved away, leaving a trail that confused the creature. After an hour of careful maneuvering, she lost it. That first night, Kara built a shelter high in the branches, far from the forest floor. She set traps around it, not to kill, but to warn her if predators approached. She ate the rations from her pack sparingly. She was not afraid of hunger. She was afraid of underestimating Vorath's dangers. As she sat by the small fire she managed to start, she thought about the council. They had assumed she would die quickly, and they would move on to their next problem. But Kara smiled. They did not understand humans, or Deathworlders. She had survived planets far worse than this one. She had survived when predators far bigger and smarter had tried to end her life. Vorath was dangerous, yes, but it was also home in a way. The second day tested her skills further. Kara moved through the thick forests, careful not to leave obvious tracks. She could hear the rustling of unseen creatures, the snapping of twigs under heavy feet. In a clearing, she spotted a herd of grazing animals. They were large, muscular, and fast, but she did not need them. She could eat smaller prey. Hunting here was about knowledge and patience, not just brute force. Suddenly, the ground shook as a massive shadow passed over her. Kara froze, recognizing the shape immediately. A predator larger than any she had seen. A true apex creature. It had a long, spiked tail, thick armored scales, and eyes that gleamed red in the sunlight. Most humans would have run, but Kara stayed still. She knew running would trigger the predator's chase instinct. She moved slowly, silently, behind a fallen tree. Using the branches and rocks to hide her movement, she let the predator pass. Her heart beat steadily, controlled. She had faced creatures like this before, and she knew one thing. Fear is weakness. Confidence is survival. By the third day, Kara had mapped a small area of the forest, learning which predators hunted where and which plants were safe to eat. She had built multiple small traps and learned to move in ways that made her almost invisible. She began leaving subtle marks in the trees to track predator movements. The apex predators were dangerous, yes, but she was learning them. On the fourth day, she finally killed for food. A medium-sized creature, quick but not strong, had wandered into her trap. Kara caught it silently. No sound, no struggle. She ate, quickly, and stored the rest. This small victory made her chest swell with pride. She realized something important. The council had sent her to die, but they had underestimated her. By the fifth night, she was no longer just surviving. She began watching the predators, noticing patterns, understanding their hunting techniques. She could anticipate their moves, evade their attacks, and even manipulate their behavior slightly. Vorath was dangerous, but Kara felt alive here in a way she never had before. As she rested in her tree shelter that night, staring at the alien moon glowing over the jagged horizon, Kara made a silent promise. She would not just survive Vorath, she would master it. One day the council would learn that humans, especially Deathworlders, were not weak. They were cunning, strong, and relentless. And one day, Kara would make them regret ever thinking she could be sent to die. The sun rose over Vorath, spilling red and gold light across the jagged forest canopy. Kara stretched her muscles, alert and ready. The first few days had taught her that the planet did not forgive mistakes, but she was not afraid anymore. Fear had no place here. Only focus. Only instinct. Kara moved carefully through the dense trees, her eyes scanning for movement. She had already begun to notice patterns. Certain predators hunted at night, others preferred the dense thickets, and some roamed the riverbanks in packs. Every rustle, every shadow told a story if you knew how to watch. Kara knew. By mid-morning, she spotted a small group of predators feasting on a carcass. They were fast, cunning, and stronger than anything she had seen before on her homeworld. Most humans would have run. Kara crouched behind a fallen tree, studying them. She noticed how they communicated with small growls and body movements, how they circled each other before attacking. She smiled. Knowledge was power. Kara did not try to fight them. Not yet. She did not need to. Survival was about patience, not recklessness. She stayed hidden, noting their hunting grounds, their preferred trails, and even the sounds they made when they were hungry or annoyed. This was a puzzle, and she loved puzzles. Around midday, Kara encountered a river. She paused, crouching to drink, when she noticed movement in the water. A predator, crocodile-like with armored scales and a jaw full of sharp teeth, glided silently beneath the surface. Most humans would have screamed and fled. Kara stayed still. She knew that sudden movements would trigger an attack. She slipped silently to the bank, dragging a stick behind her to distract it. The creature lunged, but Kara leapt to the side, landing silently on a high rock. The river predator sank beneath the surface, confused. By the end of the day, Kara had made a small camp near a cliff overlooking a valley. From this height, she could watch predators move without risking a direct encounter. She began drawing crude maps in the dirt, marking trails, predator dens, and hunting zones. She was not just surviving anymore. She was learning, turning Vorath's dangers into knowledge. On the third day, Kara faced her first real test. A massive predator, taller than two humans and covered in thick armored scales, appeared near her camp. Its roar shook the ground. Most humans would have panicked. Kara did not. She remembered her lessons from the death world. Observe, predict, and control your fear. She crouched low, using the tall grass to hide herself. The predator sniffed the air, searching for prey. Kara noticed it favored sudden lunges and brute force but had poor peripheral vision. Using a rock, she created a small distraction behind it. The creature turned, charging toward the sound. Kara slid to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws, and ran to higher ground. She let it follow her, into a narrow canyon where its size became a disadvantage. It crashed into the canyon walls, frustrated. Kara watched silently, heart steady, as it finally gave up and wandered away. That night, she reflected on her success. She realized something important. Vorath's predators were strong, but they were predictable. Strength alone was not enough. Intelligence, patience, and cunning could turn the tables, and Kara had all three. The following days passed in a rhythm of observation and survival. Kara learned to move silently, to hide in shadows, to use natural camouflage, and to predict predator behavior. She discovered which plants could be eaten safely, which waters were clean, and which paths led to predator dens. She even began to make small traps, not to kill, but to test predator intelligence. Some traps she set were simple sticks and vines. Others were clever bait systems, designed to see if predators would follow patterns. Most of the time, the predators failed, and Kara laughed quietly to herself. She loved this game. By the end of the first week, Kara had begun hunting small prey for food, but always carefully. She learned to track silently, to use the wind and terrain to her advantage, and to strike only when success was certain. Her first kill was a small, fast creature, not dangerous, but enough to sustain her. She ate slowly, savoring the taste, not for pleasure but as proof that she could survive on this deadly world. For hours she observed its behavior. Kara woke to the sound of distant roars echoing through the valleys of Vorath. She stretched, her body strong and alert. The past week had changed her. She was no longer just surviving. She was learning, adapting, and thriving. The predators she once feared were now subjects of her observation, creatures she could predict and eventually hunt. By sunrise, Kara moved through the forest with complete silence. Her movements were precise, calculated, almost like a shadow, drifting over the underbrush. She carried only a small satchel with minimal tools, sharp blades, climbing ropes, and traps she had designed herself. Her eyes scanned constantly, noting every rustle, every movement. Today she would attempt something daring. She had spotted a medium-sized predator near a river, a creature fast, cunning, and known to hunt alone. Most humans would never dare confront it, but Kara was no ordinary human. She crouched behind a fallen log, observing the predator's rhythm. It dipped its head to drink, ears twitching. Kara studied its reaction to every sound, every scent. Slowly, she laid a simple trap of vines and sharpened sticks disguised among the rocks and leaves. She baited it with the carcass of a smaller creature she had killed earlier. Then she waited. Patience had become her greatest weapon. Hours passed. The predator circled, suspicious but hungry. Kara's breath was steady, her pulse calm. Finally, it stepped onto her trap. A vine caught its leg and the predator struggled. Kara did not rush. She watched carefully, learning how the creature moved when trapped. Then in one precise motion she struck, incapacitating it without unnecessary cruelty. It was her first true victory, not just survival, but hunting by skill and strategy. That night, Kara sat by her small fire, reflecting on the day. She realized something important. Hunting was not about strength alone. It was about understanding, planning, and patience. Every predator on Vorath, no matter how strong, had a pattern. And patterns could be learned, studied, and used against them. Over the next few days, Kara began taking calculated risks. She hunted predators that had once terrorized humans sent to Vorath. She observed pack behaviors, noticing which creatures led hunts and which followed. She tested traps, baited lures, and even mimicked predator sounds to manipulate their movements. With each hunt, her confidence grew, and the predators began to notice her presence. Some began to avoid her territory, sensing her skill. Kara started, calling herself the Ghost of Vorath, though no one knew her name yet. The predators felt it in the shadows, in the rustle of leaves, in the silence where she moved unseen. Her reputation was growing among creatures who had never feared humans before. One morning, Kara spotted a predator larger than any she had seen before. It was a true apex predator, with jagged spines along its back, glowing eyes, and claws that could tear through steel. Most humans would have run screaming. Kara did not. She crouched low, hidden among dense ferns, observing. She noticed how it sniffed the air, how it marked territory, and how it hunted smaller predators for practice. She realized she could challenge it, not recklessly, but strategically. Using her traps in the terrain, she set up a complex system. She lured smaller predators near its territory, drawing its attention, then used narrow pathways and hidden ledges to control its movements. When the predator lunged, Kara dodged gracefully, leading it into a trap she had prepared earlier. The battle lasted hours. Kara tested every skill she had learned: stealth, agility, observation, and patience. She did not attack recklessly. She waited for openings, studied its patterns, and struck only when the odds favored her. By nightfall, the apex predator lay subdued, breathing heavily but alive. Kara did not kill it. She had not come to conquer, through cruelty. She had come to prove mastery. As she sat beside the beast, Kara felt a strange respect for it. Predators were not mindless killers. They were intelligent, calculating, and worthy of respect. She had earned this victory through skill, not brute force, and that mattered more than any kill. News of her success spread through the predator hierarchy. Smaller predators began avoiding her, recognizing the ghostly presence that could outsmart even the fiercest hunters. Kara was no longer just a survivor. She had become a force of nature, a human who could dominate the deadly world of Vorath without being killed. By the end of the week, Kara had built a network of traps, observation points, and shelters throughout her territory. She had learned to anticipate predator behavior days in advance. The planet, which had been a sentence of death, had become a proving ground, and she had passed every test. Kara reflected on the council that had sent her here. They believed she would die quickly, that she would be nothing more than another corpse in Vorath's forests. But they did not understand humans, or Deathworlders. She was stronger, smarter, and faster than any predator. She was relentless. She had a new sense of purpose. Survival was no longer enough. Kara wanted to hunt for mastery, to challenge predators at the peak of their strength, and to show the galaxy that underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. She wanted to be more than a survivor. She wanted to be a legend. That night, Kara climbed to the highest cliff overlooking the valley. The twin moons of Vorath glowed above jagged peaks, casting long shadows across the forests. She felt alive, sharper, and more confident than ever. The predators below, the apex beasts and cunning hunters, could feel her presence. The ghost of Vorath was here, and the planet would never be the same. Kara's eyes gleamed with determination. The council had tried to end her life. They had thought this Deathworlder girl would die quickly among creatures they believed unbeatable. They had been wrong, very wrong. Kara smiled, thinking of the challenges ahead. She would hunt, study, and master every predator on Vorath. She would turn exile into dominance. And one day, when the galaxy heard her name, they would understand that humans, especially Deathworlders, were not to be underestimated. The forest rustled below, and Kara's eyes followed the movement. She was ready. Her next hunt would not just be for survival. It would be for sport, for mastery, and for glory. And Vorath would learn the meaning of the ghost. Weeks had passed since Kara first set foot on Vorath, and the planet had changed. Where, once the forests had been alive with predator roars and danger, now the creatures moved with caution. Even the apex predators, once feared as unstoppable, seemed aware of her presence. Kara had become more than a survivor. She was a hunter who understood every move, every pattern, every weakness. From her cliffside observation post, Kara watched a group of predators approach a river to drink. She noticed their behavior. The smaller ones hesitated. The larger ones sniffed the air constantly, and all avoided certain trails. Those trails led to her traps, cleverly disguised but carefully placed to test the creatures. Kara smiled. Vorath's most dangerous predators were learning to fear her. The Council, far across the galaxy, began to hear rumors. Reports from scouts and traders suggested that someone, or something, was dominating Vorath's predators. They could not believe it at first. No human, especially one sent to die, could survive here. The Council began to worry. Their plan to exile Kara had backfired. Back on the planet, Kara moved silently through the forest carrying minimal gear. Her skills had sharpened. She could climb, run, and camouflage herself almost perfectly. Today she was testing a new trap near a known predator den. She left bait, carefully observing the creature's reaction from a hidden position. Hours passed. Finally, a massive predator approached. Kara waited patiently. She had learned from every encounter, and she knew the perfect moment to act. When the predator stepped onto the trap, vines and sharpened sticks immobilized it without injury. Kara emerged from the shadows, speaking softly. She was not here to kill unnecessarily. She was here to prove mastery. The predator struggled but could not escape. Kara studied it, noting its strength, agility, and reactions. After a while, she released it, watching as it limped away, humiliated but alive. She knew that mastery was not just about killing. It was about understanding, controlling, and respecting the predators. That understanding made her stronger, faster, and smarter than anything Vorath had produced. Days later, Kara faced a new challenge. A pack of predators had encroached on her territory, led by an apex creature larger than any she had seen before. The pack moved with coordination, hunting smaller predators for practice. Kara observed silently, noting their communication. Subtle growls, tail movements, and ear twitches. Instead of attacking directly, Kara set a series of clever traps to test their intelligence. She lured them into a narrow canyon where their size became a disadvantage. One by one, the predators became entangled, confused by her clever design. Kara moved like a shadow, unseen but omnipresent, controlling the battlefield. By nightfall, the pack had retreated, humbled by a human they could not understand or predict. Her reputation among the predators was growing. Smaller creatures avoided her paths. Larger predators hesitated when she was nearby. The forest seemed to whisper her name, the ghost of Vorath. Kara also thought about the Council. She imagined their panic as news reached them. They had sent her to die,